If you didn't know, the end is coming, and it's coming soon. And so, obviously, during COVID, Canada, different other countries, Australia, where they were rounding people up that were non compliant with the vaccine mandates and such, there's a lot of infringement on human rights that are occurring. And it's only increasing. Pastors being jailed in Britain for just preaching the gospel. Pastors in Canada being jailed because they just want to meet with their congregations. And things of that nature. And it's not that far away removed here in the US. It's coming. And I was talking with a coworker about this, where he was just kind of lamenting the whole thing of that it seems like before the Christian values were celebrated and then they were tolerated, and now they're untolerated, and now it's getting to where they're being villainized. And I just simply asked him, is it still worth it to you to practice Christian values? And he said, yeah, of course. And I asked him, then what are you complaining about? See, we've lived in a blip over the last, I want to say like 70 years, maybe a little longer than that here in the US, in which Christianity was the norm, especially during the Cold War, in which we're the Christian heroes of the world, and the communist atheists are the evil villains of the world, and we have to stop them by demonstrating our Christian faith and our unity. And it worked. It galvanized the entire country to spend the USSR into destruction. And now Russia, however, is kind of back on the prowl, but primarily capitalistic in nature. And so we won. We won the Cold War. But we sold our soul in the process. And the things that we read about in Soviet Russia and in the Ukraine and behind the Iron Curtain and in sub-Saharan Africa and in Southeast Asia and in communist China, North Korea, the things that we've read about happening over there are soon to begin happening here. And so the question now becomes, is it worth it? Is it worth it to be a Christian? I used to grow up with this kind of rhetoric going to a Pentecostal church. They used to use really graphic language, like, would you be willing to just let your child starve to death because you can't buy formula to feed it because you don't have the mark of the beast? And it was so hyperbolic back then. But then we lived through COVID, in which you couldn't go out unless you had a little paper sitting on your dash that said, I'm essential. You couldn't go out in public unless you had a mask that, it didn't cover your forehead, it covered your face, your mouth instead. And so it seems a lot more realistic now, a lot less hyperbolic than it did before. But it should be noted, this is what it's like to live as a Christian almost everywhere else in the world. They don't have massive buildings in the Middle East for Christians to meet in, for the most part, because they're hated. Large buildings for Christians to meet in get firebombed. Large crowds and gatherings of Christians in the Middle East have trucks drive through them, have suicide bomb attacks. That's what they deal with on a regular basis. Women are assaulted, children are kidnapped and sold into slavery just because their parents are Christians or their parents are pastors or missionaries. Women and men and children are put to death for the honor of their family names for converting to Christ. That's what happens. And so that's not happening in the United States of America. But we shouldn't rule it out. And we think that it's the coming of the end of the world. It's the end times. It's the worst possible thing that could ever happen. And that why would God allow this? And what it's showing is how that we have simply been absent from the global church. That rather than us partnering with them hand in hand, heart to heart, saying, you're not alone, we are here with you. The blessing of our wealth was given to us so that we could share it with you. Instead of saying that, instead, we have very much so held up our palm to them and said, no, you are alone. Our wealth was given to us for us to hoard. And so if I don't have this now and invest it, then I'm not going to have a retirement in the future where I can go to the beach and gather seashells and go on cruises and utilize my timeshare the way that I want to. And so, I'm sorry, you're on your own. That's what we've told them. Even if we didn't say it out loud, it's what we did, and it's what we meant. We would rather retire in comfort than to suffer with our brothers and sisters in Christ all over the world. And now that suffering is near and even at the door, and suddenly we're afraid of it. And I wonder if we're going to demand that the third world come to our rescue when it's us and our children. Are we going to ask them to give so that we can have the things we need, the things that we deprived them of? Is that what we're going to do? And you know what? If we do, they probably will. Because even though we weren't there for them, they probably will be there for us. Because I don't know if our faith is real, but I'm confident of theirs. And the reason I'm confident of theirs is that it was tested by trials. It's been tested by fire. And the straw and the stubble was burnt up. And what was left was the precious stones and metals and gems in them. They've been left precious. They've been refined in a way that we have not experienced and that we are afraid of because we're so comfortable. We're afraid of losing that comfort. We're afraid of losing the comfort that makes you weak. We're afraid of embracing the hardship that makes us strong. And so the hardship is coming, and we're not ready for it. And I wonder if when it comes, will we still be too proud to ask for help when we know that there are people that would give it to us? Because I wonder if we're even so far into ourselves that we wouldn't even ask for help. I don't know. I don't know which is the bigger tragedy, to demand of the third world to give to us when we weren't there for them, or to not ask them when we know they would be there for us. I don't know which is the bigger tragedy, but neither one is a very good expression of the gospel. But it's not too late. It's not too late for us to be there for them while there's still time and while we still have daylight to share with them.